what we would buy and why. Boy, do we come across some cracker deals. We got one for you today. We're going to talk you through the deal. Stay tuned.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes, episode 439. Myself, Michael BURGIO, Mark Novak, property of the week. We want to do one with some, we always, as you said in the intro, we get some interesting properties you don't even think are out there, that are out there. People have sat on them for multiple generations, and then they do cool stuff with them, which then enable buyers to have great opportunities. We have one in DEE. Mark, talk us through it. Or wherever you want to go first.
We were just talking about a time machine. So we said, like, we've got, with our experience, we've got the foresight of seeing deals, and you go, shit, I can see that deal up front, and I can see that deal at the end, how it's gonna nut out, and you just wish you could buy everything. And before we were just saying, as a joke, we're saying we wish we had a time machine, because you'd literally go back in time and you'd go, like, that property that just did so well, and the vision that happened. It's like I would go back in time just before they bought it, and bought it myself with my own money, my own check, and went ahead with it. But we have that vision as real estate agents because we're so transactional. We see so much stuff going on, and we see the opportunities. And so we thought we'd talk about one each week.
I also think there is, if you look back, I hadn't thought of that as before, but now I sort of think of it, there is a bit of a blend between culture and property trends. Like, especially if you look at property at the moment, there's a lot of emphasis on, sustainability, not too high impact, congestion, like all that stuff. And then you look prior to decades prior, there wasn't much of that. Like, everyone knows a suburb, they're driving through it and they're like, how did that unit block get there? Or how did it get so high? That would never happen now. And then you sort of look back from generations and you're like, well, there were different times and they weren't considering the neighbor's solar aspect. They weren't considering how many cars would be going in. Like, I don't know.
That was a brown paper bag deal.
And who would pay cash? So I just think it's very interesting, because we're talking about Collaroy Beachfront, where that for a short time was rezoned for high rise, and then a lot of people but even then sort of proves that a lot of people in the community complained, and then they re-changed the zoning back, which I think I've never heard that happen before. But anyway,
you see it all the time. So let's pull apart this transaction now. This particular one is in DY. It's a house on 2,000 meters squared. Thanks, Virgil just brought up the photo. So if I just step back for a sec, okay, that's a great photo. So this house, it's a monster. I call it a wog home. It's a monster wog home. And I can say that because I'm a wog, but it's the 2,000 meters squared that it's on. Automatically, you think to yourself, oh my God, I wonder what I could get on that, because that amount of land that's in front of the house, there's the same amount of land behind the house. So the next thing you think is, shit, what can I do with that? What's the highest and best use? Backyard.
Yeah, so front and back. So you look, and like you see units in the background. So you think, a lot of people think, can you do units? But then your New South Wales Planning Portal is a really good website which will identify what you can do with a block. And this being R2 zoned, low to medium, technically it'll accommodate a boarding house, over 55s, subdivision, but generally there's minimum lot sizes. So in DY, your minimum lot size, I think 600. So a lot of the time, Mark, you may have a block that can technically fit 3 blocks, but they can't actually practically get 3 blocks from the angle, driveway, easement. But it wasn't the case here. Everything went pretty smoothly. What was achieved?
Yeah, so if we step back, if we could go back to that first photo, which is the aerial over the top.
Yeah.
When we started looking at this site with the owner, we're like, you know what, we reckon this is really, really good for 3 blocks. We said, can we step back one more? Yep. We said, with this house, what we imagine as real estate agents is we imagine putting a driveway up the left-hand side. So all the way up there. Good morning, Sean. Showing you a money maker this morning, mate. So going up that left-hand side and then putting a block at the back and putting a block at the front. Now, that would mean you'd have to knock down one garage to create a 4-metre driveway, which has your services in there. And that would mean you could leave the double garage that's already there. Now, you can see next door you've got your units. Now, I don't mind, just a bit of advice with developing stuff. If you're in a slightly dirty location, it's actually always going to be a little bit easier to get something approved. And what I mean by that is this isn't the case, but if you're next door to a service station and on a main road, or if you are surrounded by a unit block on the left, right, and behind, it's always going to allow some sort of merits with government. So a slightly dirty location is not bad, depending on what sort of end product you're doing. If you're doing a high-end home, you sort of don't want that. But if you're doing like a boarding house, you sort of want that. But it just allows further development. Burge, over to you. Let's talk about the subdivision. So we de-risked it.
Yes. So I'll bring you to the approved plans, which I think a lot of people don't understand timing. This took 14 weeks, basically start to finish, over Christmas. So it was lodged before. So you can imagine if you didn't have basically a month off, it could have been a lot quicker. And it's actually perfect. It's one of those things I think it has been offered in 70 years. A decent conversation would have been, did they have a plan for this? Because minus the driveway, you got your front block of 600 square meters gross area, minus driveway, it's 590. With council, so whenever there's a subdivision, you've got to have a basic envelope of where the building would be. So you've got to show council, yes, you can fit a building on it. This does not mean that's all the size you can build. When you apply for a further DEA for a house, or generally once a DEA is approved, you only need to do a private certification, which can take pretty quickly. Most builders like a Metricon will do that part of the package. You can extend the envelope. You may turn it on its side, have it face that way. But either way, you've got granny flat. Yeah, you may push the house forward within the boundary, put a granny flat at the back, do all that type of stuff. Cool. So, Paul, whenever you see a red line like this, or it could be any color, but a possible building, you're not restricted to it generally. A developer has to put a basic envelope on it. So you see that at the front, but that is, I think it's about 150 square meters ground floor. So a 2-story home would be 300 internal, which is huge. And then you've got where you minus the driveway. Then you've got the block out the back, which the gross floor area is 800 because they've attached, I believe, the driveway to that block, and 600 excluding it. So the same again, you've got your envelope at the back, super private. But the big bonus was the house in the middle remained with some front yard, some backyard, only the loss of a single garage when the property already had a huge double, which a wall I think can come out and make room for 4 on a 625 square meter block. So that's just a big win. A lot of the time on older properties, Mark, you just see the house set too far back and they've got a big front yard and can't fit a lot of the time they weren't thinking forward. So by luck or genius, it came out. It's almost like it was planned, because it just, both blocks, 600 net floor area, worked out perfectly with the huge home in the middle. But you can't just go in there and build the home straight away. Mark, step us through just the basics of a new development, especially Northern Beaches with water, just to talk people through it.
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
The basics you can't just go there right now and build the house. You got to do the driveway, water retention tank. There's always some stuff.
Yeah. So obviously there's site preparation that has to be done. So although this is approved, people have to understand that there's a couple of things you've got to get services to those blocks: water, storm water. When it rains, sewage, when you have a shower, let's say something else, and all that's got to run. And so, to get connected to a block will probably be about 50,000 per block, including the existing home, because if you will be making some sort of changes to the site. So ripping a driveway all the way up that side, and then inside that driveway, what people often do is they do a thing called a retention tank, because they're doing the concreting, they're doing the digging already. They put that retention tank under that driveway, sort of a convenient. Now, a retention tank is basically like an underwater swimming pool, and what it actually does is, in the event of flash flooding, it will actually hold the water from those homes on site, and then it'll dissipate that water slowly after the flash flood's over. So to build all that is probably about the 150K, 160K mark.
And a lot of time, a lot of people, the building industry has gotten phenomenal with your Metricons, your Claridons, your GI Gardeners, and a lot of time they will incorporate site costs into it as well. Like, you can build a 4 or 5 bedroom home from starting at 500K up to a pretty, very, very nice home up to about 900 a mil. If you did the custom builds, where they're literally like cutting the wood, then people have got to understand the difference of your Metricon and your custom. A lot of a Metricon is a prefabbed, built elsewhere, and then assembled on site, and then your custom is basically cutting the wood on site, and that can be like 3 or 4 times as much. But when you've got a good, clean, level block, like a lot in DEE and this in particular, you've got the benefit of being able to call in a Metricon, because like in a narrowbeam where you've got slopey blocks, you don't have that luxury. So
we've got 2 minutes left. I don't want to get caught up in the details. Let's talk about who would buy this and what sort of money they would make from buying this. You automatically think big, greedy developer, but there's also the simple fact that 3 buddies could get together and buy it.
Yeah. Families. We get often a lot that a brother and sister, they're both married with families, want to be close by. They're looking for a dual lock. They're looking for a bigger block to subdivide for the same family. So more often than not, mum and dad and daughters, they want to be within close to each other, but not in the same house. And typically, sometimes the granny flat's too small for either party, so they want 2 homes, but it's nearly impossible to find.
So with granny flats, this could almost do 6 homes on this site. With subdivision and proper homes, it would be 3 homes plus 3 granny flats.
Yeah.
To give you an idea, this particular property is, I guess you could effectively say, it's almost 2.5, 3, say 2.5 for the house and 1.25 for each block of land. But
yeah,
that's
this is perfect for any nationality. The Italians with 20 family members, the Chinese, the Indians. This can fit a community on it. 6 properties.
A church could be
or 3 bedroom. You got to get 18 bedroom church.
So basically, guys and girls, what this could do, don't think this is not for you. Don't think that you don't have the ability to do this. There's a lot of people that are sitting on a home that they bought 15 years ago, that's 20 years ago, that's now paid off. And those homes are worth $2 or $3 million. So you could literally buy something like this. It's 4.95. That's the price guide. You could literally buy this, do nothing, just stay there and sit on it. And then after you sit on it for a couple of years, you could build a granny flat on the front, granny flat on the back, and just rent those out. You could build a house at the front, or you could take one of these blocks of lands and we could sell the house and the other block for you, and you'd make a really tidy profit. So there's many, many different options or ways that you can actually buy something like this, this sort of opportunity. And that address is 18 Lewis Street, DY. Look it up on our website. Where's Michael gone? And just there,
froze.
Mate?
Yeah, it froze and I lost visual.
So yeah, there's some really good. It's a really good opportunity. 18 Lewis Street. Buy yourself if you can fund 4.95. Buy with a friend or two, because there's technically going to be 3 titles there when that's been subdivided. If you know anyone that's interested in doing something like this, share this episode with them.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye.
See you, legend.